I've only been taking it really seriously for a couple of months. And I did okay before that. But if I had started with a much better plan from the beginning, I feel like I could be so much further.
You just heard Evan, and Evan is another success story interview. He basically doubled his traffic and doubled his revenue by using the keyword golden ratio. You're going to hear his story in this episode. My name's Doug Cunnington. This is The Doug Show. In this episode I think 14, Evan is going to tell us about his affiliate site. His affiliate site is partially monetized with Amazon Associates, and then he has some other affiliate programs in there too. One of the cool things about this site is that it was about 14 months old at the time that we recorded this interview. He was working on it for a little while, but wasn't taking it super seriously for a bit. It's really relatable because that's a very common thing to happen where maybe you start a site, you get some traction. And by the way, Evan was doing really well, making like $1,500 to $2,000 a month for a stretch. And basically, once he started pouring on more keyword golden ratio content, he was getting a lot more traction. Now, a little behind the scenes, I recently caught up with Evan in the early part of 2019. So I have an update interview coming up in a few episodes. So please do keep an eye out for that. It's he's still growing his site. Basically, things are going great. For today, in this interview, we'll just be talking about the initial content sprint that got Evan close to about $4,000 a month. Let's send it over to the interview, and I'm going to answer some questions at the end. Hey, Doug Cunnington here, and I'm sitting with my friend Evan. How are you today?
Hey, I'm great, Doug.
Thanks for contacting me and letting me know the success that you're having with your Amazon affiliate site. So before we get into the details, can you just share the results that you've seen just in the last couple months here?
Yeah, definitely. So my site is actually a little bit older. It's about 14 months old. Started as a hobby site. I wanted to monetize it eventually, but I had no real plans or strategy for that. So, I did a couple of things here and there, and it got myself to a certain level, but I was kind of stuck. And it was in about late February, that I started kind of pouring on the KGR. I decided to go all in. Since then, I've written about 50 to 55 KGR posts. Since that point, so it's been about 3 months. The traffic has roughly doubled. I was getting about 1,000 visitors a day. Now it's about 2,000. And the revenue has shot up, as well. In February, I think I made about $600. This month, I could hit 4K, depending on how things go. It's been a good start to the month. So that's in the cards, I'm hoping. But yeah, so I've seen all the metrics have gone through the roof. It's been great.
I'll quickly summarize here. The site's about 14 months old. It's June of 2018 right now, and it looks like you could hit 4K this month. And it's been, since you've been putting about 50 keyword golden ratio compliant articles up, traffic has doubled. It sounds like you're at about 60K per month over the last month or so.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right
awesome.
Around there.
Congratulations. That's a huge feat. I mean,
Thanks.
For some people, that's like, they're thinking about quitting their job and stuff like that. But before we go down that road, why don't you just introduce yourself? Let us know your background. What do you do for your day job? That sort of thing.
Sure. So, my background, I guess in some ways, is tailor-made for this. I have a background in writing. I'm a writer by trade. I've always run my own blogs and written for, the school newspaper. And then I got into copywriting back in 2012, worked for a digital agency, eventually ended up running content strategy and content marketing there and copywriting. And then eventually I graduated to writing for like one of the really, really big viral news publishers. And so, I have experience like helping smaller brands grow blogs, and then also writing content that's optimized for a publisher with like 13 million Facebook fans. So I kind of have a cool breadth of experience there that's really helped me jump into this, I think. Actually, in my day job, which is kind of funny you bring that up, I did quit my job a couple months ago. Not for this specifically, but I was like, hey, it's time for a change. I'm going to move on. And while I'm looking for a job, I'm going to work on this. Thought I would get a job and this would just be nice side income. But this has gone better than I thought. And the job hunt has gone worse than I thought. So
and where are you from, by the way?
I'm in Atlanta, or the suburb of Atlanta called Marietta, so down there in Georgia.
Cool. And that's my old hometown. And before we started recording, we were chatting about, old times sitting in traffic down in Atlanta.
Sure, yeah.
So, and luckily you don't have to commute, because it would be a nightmare from Marietta. Even if you have to just like go to the other side of Marietta, that's kind of bad too, right?
Yeah, I used to work in Midtown from OTP, as we call it, and that was a nightmare. So now I just try not to leave the house at all.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you got to do it. Otherwise, it's just a nightmare. Anyway, so that's cool. And I guess you had like a writing or English background in college and stuff.
I didn't study English, but I just like always wrote my own stuff and built a portfolio and was able to like get smaller and bigger and bigger writing jobs as I went along. So no formal training, but creative writing I've got a good background in it.
Nice. That's pretty cool. So do you remember when you first heard about like internet marketing or niche sites in general?
Yeah, it was at my my agency job back in 2012 to 2015. I worked there. And one of my buddies there who worked in SEO, one day he told me he was quitting. And I was like, oh, that's cool. What are you doing? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to run my blog. And I'm like, I was like, what? And this guy's a guy with like a family and a kid. And I was like, you're going to quit to run a blog? I don't understand. And that's when I first found out about how he was using kind of affiliate marketing and, left his full-time job to do it.
Got it.
I had no idea how, but,
You just heard of the concept. And what year was that, by the way?
That was a couple years ago, maybe like 2015.
Okay. So pretty recent overall.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now take us through the timeline of your site. So you mentioned you started it about 14 months ago. It's a hobby site and you were, just take us through the timeline. So kind of inspired by my friend, I was like, I want to do that. I don't really know how, but let me start a site based on something I like, and I'll just have an outlet. And and I have that background in blogging and content marketing, and I knew I could write good articles and get traffic. Like I knew I could do that. I didn't know how to monetize. I didn't know anything about Amazon affiliates or affiliate programs really. So I thought I'd figure that out later. I had a couple of like reviews I wanted to do based on things in the niche that I enjoyed and was already using, and so I did those and had some success. I mean, the site grew. I got traffic. Pre-KGR, pre any of this stuff, I was still at 20, 30K visits a month and doing pretty well with certain product reviews, but I just kind of was stuck there. And I was started to think about like, how can I take this to the next level? And I've been following the KGR stuff for a couple months and was really on the fence. I was kind of one of those people who was like, I don't know, does all title really work? And right,
what if the keyword is this and what if the volume is this? And I think it was about that time in February where I was like, it sounds good. I've seen the other success stories. Let me just try it. Let me write a couple dozen of these and like see what happens. And seeing the success from each batch that I did like kept me kind of going. And here I am.
Very cool. And how many posts did you have on your site before you started adding KGR stuff?
Probably like 20. Okay. I actually haven't counted, but yeah, around 20 probably.
Okay. So you had 20 articles over the span of like a little less than a year, maybe 10 months or so.
Yeah.
And then you've added like 50 more. About how long are those KGR posts?
They're usually about 1,500. Like 1,200 is kind of the floor, and then some of them are just barely cracking 2,000. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that's cool. And basically, as soon as you started publishing them, you were out of the sandbox already. You had a pretty good amount of traffic. You're getting like 800 to 1,000 visitors per day, right? And then you started putting like content that you'd be able to rank for right away. So how fast would you rank after you would publish it?
That's a good question. I feel like it actually took some time for me. Like this is something that's kind of weird and maybe you know about it, but I'm on Squarespace, which God, if I could go back in time and go back to WordPress, I would do it. But it feels like it takes my pages a long time to get indexed. Like once they're indexed, they're ranked pretty quickly. But it just seems like it takes like a week or two for Google to really figure out like what's going on. And I don't know if that's a Squarespace thing or not.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I was publishing so much stuff that I didn't even pay attention. I just like published it, and then like I'd come back 3 weeks later and have a look and see like what was going on. And slowly it would happen. Of course, you can go to the Google Search Console, fetch the specific page, but I find it's not necessary unless I make a specific change. I want it re-indexed immediately.
I just try to, just keep moving with the content, make sure my internal links are good, and just kind of let it go because it gets there,
Right.
And once it's indexed, like I said, like it's usually pretty high up. So. And
I take it you don't have any other writers since you're a good writer yourself, but I'll ask anyway.
Yeah, no, I have actually used some Upwork writers. I can be a little bit precious about about the content
Right.
as a writer myself, but I really wanted to scale up, and I had to learn to let go a tad. I tried one writer from Upwork like back in March, and it just didn't go very well. But then I used kind of some of your tips about hiring people that maybe didn't have the big Upwork history and just seemed like good, smart people, and that went way better. So I did that in May, and that's how I was able to get a lot more work done.
Cool. How many writers did you hire?
I was working with just two to start, and they probably did 10 to 15 pieces for me.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. And yeah, that's a good dent. And do you remember what you were paying them?
Between $15 and $20 for, the full article, depending on how long it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess as a writer yourself, you don't want to like beat them up too much on price, and you're like, want to give them a fair wage, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure. Well, I kind of used a little bit of what you talked about like giving them raises. Like for the test article, it was like lower. And then for the next batch, I gave them like a little bit more, and
Yeah. And like, it's really cool not to let them know that you're going to do that, because then it's like winning the lottery. You're like, oh wow, right. that's crazy. It's a scratch off. It's an extra $10 or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
So
it's a
that's
nice
cool.
thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Are you continuing to work with them right now, like getting a lot more content done, or what's the situation?
They're not working on anything right this second, but yeah, I'm thinking about doing another batch with them because they did a good job, and it helped me get a lot done. So it's just about how much I want to spend.
Okay. Cool. Now, it sounds like you are working with other affiliate programs aside from Amazon based on what you mentioned before. So can you tell us a little bit about that and why you are working with other programs?
Yeah. So, like I said, there was the site started as a hobby site, and there was this kind of like suite of informational products that I used that really helped me a lot. And I noticed that nobody else except spammers were really writing content for them, and they had an affiliate program. And so I was like pretty quickly able to take over like all the traffic regarding X reviews for them for all their different products. And as an info product, the commissions can be pretty good because there's no like physical product, there's no like overhead for it. So yeah, I mean, that's been a big chunk of what I've made. But the cool thing about the KGR is that I've been able to, because those are so profitable for me, I've been able to like use KGR style articles to funnel even more relevant people to those reviews that are earning me a lot of money. And so that's been part of the growth, even though it's not Amazon, it's a big contributor.
Right. And I think a couple of takeaways. So I get questions like, can you use the KGR for X or Y or whatever? So a couple things that you're doing differently than a lot of the standard model. So you're using Squarespace, number one. So you're using Squarespace, which is, I mean, I've never used it, but it's supposed to be easy to use and all that.
Well, so, I think it's great if for like a landing page or like a static website. Blogging, it's kind of a pain, but it is what it is.
Right. So anyway, so you're on Squarespace, and you're also doing other affiliate programs. And are you able to share like whatever platform or marketplace you worked with or whatever?
Yeah, so they've actually kind of hopped around. They were doing their own thing, and then they were on ClickBank, and now they're do you know the website Teachable, where people host courses and stuff? So now Teachable is like launching their own affiliate marketplace, and so it's going through there now, and it's early on. Yeah, so things have changed a lot because this is like a young brand that I'm working with, but they keep hopping around. But it's doing well for me. So
gotcha. Okay, and I guess it just sounds like the specific hobby or niche that you're involved in, like there's just good products, and it sounded like you used the products, so you actually like could write about it knowledgeably and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a competitive niche, but I think that there's little spaces here and there, to fit in, and
right.
And it helps being interested in it because you kind of know a little bit more, and you can find those niche topics.
Sure. I know you told me the niche, so I know what it is, and other people don't. But I was going to say it is competitive, and it's like super impressive that in 14 months you can like ramp up a site. You're heading for 4K hopefully this month in June. So it's a competitive space. I can tell people that. So very cool. Now, link building. Did you get into link building at all, or what's the situation there?
I have done kind of one link building push, and this was pre-KGR or anything like that, but I did kind of the guestographic approach. I had someone on Upwork make an infographic for me. It actually turned out really cool, and I did some outreach for it, and I got a couple of links. Nothing like really impressive. The niche is like very branded, like everyone's kind of like a guru expert. Like people aren't really linking to each other's content a lot, so link building is a little bit tough in this niche. So I didn't go amazing, but I got a couple there here and there. And yeah, I think it's something that I should revisit though.
Gotcha. Actually, again, this is because I know the niche, I have an idea where you can go outside the niche, but there's some overlap where I think you may have good traction. So I'll tell you afterwards.
Yeah, perfect.
So it sounds like you didn't do much link building, and the power of the KGR like carries the organic traffic. So that's cool. Do you do much on the social side, any platforms that you're active on or anything like that?
I'm actually really bad at social media in general. So I'm not good at like running these accounts, but I do get a good influx of social traffic from, people who stumble upon my content. And there's one article in particular that every once in a while, I don't know how exactly it happens, but it gets these huge Facebook spikes of like thousands of visitors a day. And, it's hard to track down where that's coming from. Like I know you can go into Facebook and put the URL in, but it doesn't always give you everything. And I just want to like thank the people who are sharing.
Yeah. There's so many like just little or actually really large like Facebook groups that, I mean, if somebody shares something can go viral in that group and you may not even, there's no access to it. You have to be like added in. So
yeah, sure. Exactly. I think maybe that's a selling point for like doing really, really solid informational content, because that kind of thing can happen and, it will happen organically.
Cool. Now on page sort of SEO and how you lay it out for, an affiliate post, are you using like native ads or buttons, tables? Like how do you set that up?
Yeah, I use tables with the HTML table generator that you've talked about. That has really helped, like adding those to the top of most of my KGR pieces. It's helped me get way more clicks over to Amazon. Like if I've learned anything from like this and my time at, big viral publishers, is that people don't want to read anything. They really just like want to skim and find what they need. I remember when I was writing that kind of viral news stuff, like we would sometimes have our H2s tell the entire story so that you didn't have to even read the rest, because that's just how people do it. So having tables is great. And I don't use buttons, but I usually just like text calls to action that stand out in some way. Yeah.
Cool. All right. That's exactly what I do. It's like buttons are just a little extra, but it doesn't really matter. And it sounds like no native ads at all.
I tried some here and there and I just didn't really see a return on it. So I was like,
Yeah, same here. I find that it just comes off a little more salesy versus the text call to action where you let them know that they're heading over to get more information or whatever. Mm-hmm. So
I think it's kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall. It's like, hopefully one of these products you like, and you just throw it's like, it's a little bit much for me.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, it ends up being a lot more affiliate links, like in a small section, which is, can be problematic. And by the way, how many affiliate links do you usually put like on a, say, 1,000 word or 2,000 word post?
Yeah, I've really brought it down. I used to do a lot. Like I used to have basically every mention of the product would be linked, but now I've really stripped it out. And at the top, I usually will do like a little bulleted list of like, here's the best budget, best mid-range, best high-end, those are linked. The table's linked, and then maybe just one at the end, and that's kind of it.
Okay, cool. It sounds like you watched a couple of the webinars that I've done.
Yeah, for sure. Less is more, I think, and that's kind of interesting too. Like I used to think that not necessarily saying it was going to Amazon was better, and maybe it was like less salesy and more subtle, but it's actually a good thing to be like, hey, this is, if you want to buy it, here's where you go, like so they don't open up a new window and just look for it on their own. Like it's very clear.
Right. Yeah. And really in life, you want to like meet expectations, right?
Yeah.
People are disappointed when the expectation is different than reality. So if they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to read more about whatever product, and they think they're going to another page on your site, and then they're like, it's in my cart. Like, why is it in my cart already?
Sure.
So, okay. So when I got started, I made a lot of mistakes. In fact, I still make mistakes all the time. They're just much bigger now. So did you make any mistakes as you were coming up that you learned something from? Do you want to share?
Yeah, I think I could think of a couple. I wish that I had a plan from the beginning, honestly, because I started, the site's 14 months old. I've only been taking it really seriously for a couple of months. And I did okay before that. But if I had started with a much better plan from the beginning, I feel like I could be so much further along. Even just if I had started KGR when I first saw your video on it, but I feel like I waffled for a couple months and I lost like precious time because, it does take months for this stuff to like really ramp up, and you can be, if you just start now, in a couple months from now, you'll be way far ahead versus if you sit on the fence and think about it. So that was a big one. I just wish I had started with a strategy. The other thing I think was when I was starting with KGR, I thought like, okay, I'm going to get this kind of trickle of traffic at first and it's going to slowly build. So like, let me go after like the most expensive things in my niche that I can possibly find. right? Because that's going to make me the most money, right? But it's true what they say, that there's kind of a sweet spot of like what people will buy online quickly. Things that are $2,000 are just, the decision cycle is just too long. And I mean, you can get commissions on that, but it's harder. So that kind of like 50 to 150 or $200 range is just a much better place to be, or even below that, honestly, is fine. But you don't want to miss out on the having the better conversion rate because you're going after these crazy expensive items.
And I know I was going to say, I made those same sort of mistakes where it's like, well, yeah, you just want to recommend like the most expensive thing possible because you'll make more money, but there's definitely a value in the volume that you see on Amazon. So, and at this point, I'm just like, I'll publish any or I'll target any product, even if it's only a couple bucks, because I just want Google to like my site and visitors to be on the site. And that's fine with me. So do you have a minimum threshold or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, I don't think I've done anything less than like $10, but I mean, I'll write stuff about products that are 10, 20, $30. I mean, yeah, it's something that'll rank and bring visitors and people will like it. And you're still sending clicks to Amazon, which is great. So
very cool. Evan, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, totally. I do. You've kind of heard the journey of my site, and, hopefully we'll hit around 4K this month, maybe a little bit below, but I kind of want to get to that 5 figures a month, that we talk about, and, the full like living wage off of this. And, knowing what about like my site and my niche, like, would you recommend, another huge batch of KGR posts, maybe going after some higher volume stuff or link building, or, where's my time best spent, like, in your opinion, do you think?
Sure. First thing, don't forget you have to pay taxes. So that's like 40% out the door. So don't forget about that part. I'm assuming you've already taken that into account. Yep. The other thing is you're getting good traction. And I know you mentioned before, like, you published a bunch of stuff and you're sort of regrouping right now. You don't have writers working on more stuff. I would say if you do have the budget to probably, keep publishing like more content. And, I refer back often to when I published 200 articles, and like it took a little while for everything to come together. But once it did, it like skyrocketed, and it was way more profitable than I imagined. And I just reinvested a modest amount of the earnings each month and was able to, pay for it without like any money out of my pocket. So I would say take a look at that. Additionally, one thing that I didn't do, I'm going to give you like a few things, assuming no constraints.
Okay.
And then, but I assume there are constraints. So the other part is I did another sprint like last fall where I published, a similar number of articles in a short amount of time. And I just happened to have a content team ready. So that's why I did that. In hindsight, I should have probably spent a little more time on outreach and link building as well. So KGR works really well, even with minimal link building. But if you do link building and outreach, it can be really helpful, especially when you're trying to rank something more difficult. So I would recommend spending some time on that. Or, I mean, some people would spend time on social instead, although I would say, time on the SEO portion is probably more valuable, especially if you're not a social media kind of person. The other part, back to the content, is you're probably starting to rank like number one for a few posts, and you're ranking well for certain things. I would add more content to those. So you'll be able to attract more long tail keywords. If you're already ranking number one, you may think, don't add anything to that. It's fine. Add more content to that. You can take a look at Google Search Console to see like what else that specific URL is ranking for. If you don't have any details about that, you could add more information. So for example, if it's like, the best ballpoint pen for journaling, and you see you're ranking for like something about bullet journaling, then you can add a section about bullet journaling, hopefully attract more long tail traffic to that post that's already getting a lot of love. And then you'll just get like more traffic to it. So that's one thing you can do. And I mentioned a couple other things, like I think you're probably already doing it, but like adding more images, keyword rich images can be helpful. You got to make sure you take care of the alt tag, the caption, and the other information, file name and stuff. But that could be helpful just to add more relevancy around that topic. So I would say usually it comes down to content and link building. And this is, the same deal. I guess to emphasize, don't forget the outreach can go a long way, especially if you focus on like one keyword or at least topic that maybe you have a couple keywords associated with it. If you could focus link building on that topic, that would be great, because you may be able to push up like 3 or 4 posts because your site's like more relevant about that topic.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
When I look back at like the timeline, I think it takes, my belief is there's another sandbox, right? There's a sandbox for a URL whenever you publish something. And I think it's probably about 6 months. Like if the search volume's over, I'm just making this up on the fly. If the search volume's over like 720, I feel like there's another 6-month sandbox, right? If it's a lower search volume, it's a much shorter sandbox and there's like fewer, competitors out there. The point is, a lot of times, you're seeing good growth now. You just started in February. So I would say for another 2 months, you're going to see the same, like I have the graph, so I'll show it to people, but your curve, I guess it's this direction probably. The curve is going to continue growing for probably 2 months at this like very like sharp, cool to look at earnings curve. And then it'll probably taper out a little bit. The really neat thing is it'll probably, that'll put us to August, and then it'll probably be, another 2.5 months, and then it'll jump again because of the retail season. Now, if you keep your foot on the gas and you keep adding more content, like right now, there's a good chance you'll have some kind of continued crazy exponential growth in the November and December timeframe, which is what I saw, by the way. So
interesting.
I published 200 articles between like June around this time to October or so, maybe May to October, something like that. And then it slowly grew. And then, at the beginning of that period, it was like $1,000 a month. And by the end, again, retail season was like 14,000. Yeah. So like, that's the kind of, it'll blow your mind. It's really hard to like anticipate the earnings that you can really pull in.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's funny because like, I feel like I've been grinding away at content forever, but like you said, it's only been 3 months, and almost every single piece that I've written has seen some growth from like month 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. And so like I have all these ones that I just wrote like are going to keep going and going. And, that's pretty exciting.
And Google is like liking your site even more. So by the way, do you have like healthy interlinking throughout your site, like to and from each article?
I do. That's something I've worked on recently because I wasn't doing it before, but I was like, but no, I got back in there and I made sure everything had at least 1 or 2 internal links as well as like outbound links to quality, references.
Cool. It's easy to put links in the new articles to the old stuff, but it's a real pain to go back and add new links to the old articles. And that's the part people forget, because it just sucks, especially when you have like, imagine it in 6 months from now when you have like 150 articles.
Yeah.
Like, that's when it really sucks. So
Yeah, I remember you saying that before, and so that is something I made a point of doing. And now it's easier to do it when you publish it rather than going back and trying to do a bunch of them, because that really sucks.
Right, yeah. You have a list of like 100 and you're like, what do I have to do? So excellent. All right, well, do you have any advice, Evan, for people that maybe they're just getting started, maybe they don't even have a site yet?
My biggest piece of advice is like, just start, just do it. I watch a lot of your live streams and a lot of the comments and questions, and there's a lot of, people like kind of hemming and hawing over like, what if the keyword is this? And like, what should I do if this, if that? And I think you want to dive in. And I think if I'm interpreting KGR the way you intended it, it's that it's like designed to be done at scale, right? It's not a sniper rifle where it's like, this is the keyword that's going to blow up and make you hundreds of dollars. It's like you do a lot of these, and some of them are huge hits, some of them flop, a lot of them do well, but nothing crazy. And so, and it takes a lot of time to get that work done. So it's like the sooner you start, the better off you're going to be 3 months from now. Yeah,
I know. I wish I would have started a lot of things a little bit sooner. I'm like, it eventually worked. I could have been like a year ahead. So yeah. And the other thing, I guess, like, is to kind of double down on things that are working. Like if you've got, certain products, I guess people are just primed to like buy on the internet and just seem to sell well. And if there's ways for you to funnel more traffic into those products, that's great. Like you want to have informational articles on your site anyway. If you can point those toward a review or a product roundup that converts really well, like that is going to really, really help you. And so that's one thing that I've done that's kind of like helped things take off. Awesome. Yeah, really good advice. A lot of times, and I'm guilty of this in the past, where it's like, this isn't this particular post isn't doing well. How can I make it a lot better? And then I spend time on stuff that's not working, and then it's probably never going to work, versus like checking out like what's going well. How can I do more of that? So
yeah, like it's a good thing to have kind of an understanding of that like decision cycle that people buying stuff go through. And if you're thinking about like just people who know what they want or know the specific product they want, there's also people one level up that don't know they need it yet, and you can introduce them to it. It may not convert quite as well because it's not a buyer's term, but just like if it's converting, like just get more people looking at it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I didn't ask this before. Do you have an email list on your site?
No, I don't. I'm not really doing anything with email.
Okay. Well, you got a lot of traffic. We should talk about that.
Yeah.
So especially if you have informational posts and ClickBank products or whatever products where you could actually like do some email marketing. Okay. Thanks, Evan. Really appreciate it. And maybe in a couple months, we can get an update from you if it's cool with you. Everyone, let us know in the chat if you want to hear from Evan again. You think you'd be up for it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you, Doug. I mean, the KGR has really helped me. It's been a great like roadmap to get to a point that I really didn't think that I would be able to get to. So thank you for all that you do.
Appreciate it. Thanks for saying that. And have a great day. Thanks.
All right, cool.
Of course, thanks a lot to Evan again. I really appreciate you taking the time out. Keep an eye out. Keep an ear out for the updated interview that I did with Evan. We actually go pretty deep into the weeds of forming a company. We talk about taxes and a lot of the actually just administrative stuff that is kind of boring until you get to the point where you realize you got a problem and you have to figure out how to pay taxes on this stuff. We go pretty deep into the weeds in that area. So yeah, keep an eye out for that if that's something that would interest you. Before we get to the questions, quick reminder, if you have not left a review or a rating on iTunes for this show, I would really appreciate it if you did. It helps with rankings and some other things like that. So if you have a couple minutes, maybe don't do it at a traffic light, but if you have a couple minutes sometime during your day, maybe you're on a train, maybe you're in some sort of rapid transit situation, do it then. Just leave a little review, leave a rating, something like that. Even if you're not on iTunes, leave a rating somewhere and it will be helpful. I'm going to read a couple comments that were left on the original interview posted on YouTube. So this is from Brandon English. A nice shout out for Brandon there. Brandon says he found 90 KGR terms and he has a UK-based writer knocking them out week by week. And the plan is to post 30 new KGR compliant articles each month until the end of the year. So that's pretty cool. He's putting some money into link building, and the reason there's no question here. I'll just tell you that. He is just saying he is going to take some action, and he's proclaiming it in a public forum like this, which is really cool. And again, this is part of the reason to do the success story interviews here. They get people pumped up to take action and like do something. So as we get into a few of the actual questions here, first question is from Michelle. I have a site with only one piece of content. At this early stage, should my first batch of articles be keyword golden ratio, followed by posts targeting higher volume keywords? Yeah, that seems like a pretty good approach. I usually recommend that people, when you're first launching your site, maybe do 70 to 80% of keyword golden ratio or other long tail, low competition type keywords so that you can get some traction early, hopefully get some traffic to your site. If you go for keywords and post content that is targeting very high volume, high competition keywords, there's a strong chance you're not going to rank for anything for a pretty long time. It doesn't mean it won't work. It just means you won't get any traffic for a while, which could be discouraging if you're not sure if, this stuff works. So that's a great approach. Low competition first, and then you can start targeting higher volume, higher competition keywords in the future. Next question, and this is a super common one, is whether or not the keyword golden ratio and like long tail keyword research works for just affiliate sites, or if it works for other types of websites and content and so on. The answer is it does work for basically anytime you're doing keyword research using Google. Now, the secondary or another related question is whether or not you can do, quote, keyword golden ratio type research on like YouTube or other platforms. The answer is no, not really. So for YouTube, you really don't have a good handle on the search volume. You can get some relative idea compared to other keywords, but you really don't know how many searches are happening on YouTube. Further, most views and most watch time on YouTube, they come from suggested videos. They don't come from keyword research. So it doesn't mean it's a bad idea to put in the time to do keyword research on YouTube. It just means if you're trying to figure out how to do the keyword golden ratio or anything similar on YouTube, you may be wasting your time. It probably doesn't matter that much. If most of your views are probably going to be coming from some other source aside from, organic search on YouTube, then don't worry about it. You're probably better off spending your time elsewhere, like maybe, creating better videos or something like that. And the final question for today is, this is from Prost. I can't read the rest of his screen name here on YouTube, but Prost says, Doug, what ratio of money versus non-money articles do you suggest maintaining on an affiliate site? You wouldn't recommend going for 100% money content, right? That's right. I don't recommend 100% money content. In fact, you should probably have at least 50% informational, which is like how-to content, helpful content, at least 50%. The other half can be affiliate reviews, product reviews. You may even be better off if you have like even more than 50% on the informational side. There's two main reasons for that. Number one, from like Google's standpoint, they don't want a site that is purely just affiliate content. I know there are examples of that, but in general, if you have like a more balanced set of content, you'll be in better shape. The risk is you could be hit with a penalty that Google calls like thin content. You can go research that. I could put a link in the notes for you, but essentially there's a few different types of sites that may qualify as, I'm putting in air quotes here, thin content. It doesn't mean that it's short, and it also doesn't mean that it's not accurate or anything like that. It just means Google doesn't like it for a few reasons, which you could read about further. It's a little beyond the scope of this, Q&A. So anyway, that is one reason. The second reason is Amazon Associates, the program that you're probably working with, also doesn't want you to have like purely just affiliate content with reviews. It's too much advertising. So they prefer that you have like a balance of content. Hence, about 50% seems to fit the bill. And if you have even more informational content, there's a chance you can, rank a little bit faster. I've heard some, anecdotal case studies where people have published just mostly informational content and they were able to get traffic a little bit faster than, other sites that are only posting affiliate reviews and product reviews and affiliate content. Thanks a lot for joining me on this episode of The Doug Show. The next couple episodes are very exciting. These are rebroadcasts from the Human Proof podcast. My friend Dom Wells interviewed me for a 2-part series. I'm going to talk about, actually, Dom interviews me, right? So we are going to talk about selling a site for $235,000. This was a big project that I worked on with a friend of mine, and we go deep into the details. It's called Project Go White Hat, so keep an eye out for the next couple episodes coming up. As normal, you can head over to nichesiteproject.com, click the green button, and what you can get are all of my templates and guides and other useful tools. I also, you sign up for the email list. That's what it is. You're signing up for the email list, but I send you a lot of cool emails over the course of several weeks, and I point you towards helpful information if you're looking to, start working online, start an affiliate site, or you're just interested in internet marketing. There's some other random stuff in there like productivity and whatnot. So have a look if you're interested in learning a little bit more.